Okay, here's some not Metal Gear Solid. I've got Metal Gear Solid on my mind. But this is Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 2022 Team Deathmatch gameplay on the Peleos Lighthouse map. It's one of three new maps that have been introduced in Season 3. This footage is from a month ago, earlier in the season, back when trophies, in-game trophies, had been available for pickup. You can't pick them up anymore because they're not available, but if you have any left over, you can still redeem them. This footage is definitely from a time before the third new map had been introduced, and I have footage of gameplay on that map. But regarding this map, it's visually and conceptually interesting. In terms of gameplay, there's a lot of variety, a lot of sniping lanes, a lot of close quarters areas. This house, especially the front part of it and the stairs, definitely reminds me of the house in the estate map in the original Modern Warfare 2. I get flashbacks every time I go up the stairs because it reminds me of the Spec Ops mission in which you have to camp, take out a bunch of juggernauts. So the map is centered around the cabin or the house next to the lighthouse, the titular lighthouse. Now initially the map seems small, but as you play it, you can see like the depth, the complexity, all the different levels and the winding paths. And you can actually swim around the island. I don't know if you can venture out too far. I'm sure there's those invisible barriers that cause you to die if you venture out too far, but you can actually swim around underwater. You can even climb atop some of the wreckage close to the shore. There's really not much incentive to do so in Team Deathmatch, but I can imagine it being useful for something like Search and Destroy if you're trying to hide from other players, run out the clock.
Enemy UAV overhead.
We're down by 10. Now I'm using the hacker perk, so UAVs get highlighted in the air, but I think even without the hacker perk, it's kind of easy to find UAVs if you're one of those players who actually tries to take out UAVs to help your team. That's kind of a pet peeve of mine. I seem to be the only player who actually does it. A good practice, regardless of whether you have the hacker perk, is to just mark UAVs so your teammates can have a sense of where they are in the air. And if you happen to take them down, then they can tell it's taken down because the marker is no longer in the sky. The game doesn't provide you any like HUD updates whenever UAVs get shot down. The only way that they can tell is if they're next to or close to the character who shoots it down. Like just now my character verbalized that UAV is down, but unless other players are in the vicinity, they won't hear that. And that's one thing about this map that's kind of surprising. You can get killed a fair amount of times moving toward the house. If you're so inclined, you could just patrol around the perimeter, just hunting players, catching them unaware as they're trying to take control of this pretty useful vantage point, to be fair. Especially the bedroom with the opening and the ladder leading up to it. If you control that room, then you control the upper floor. And if you control the upper floor, you control the house. There's my noob tube, ties up the match. So we're all inside the house, or close to it.
Moving here.
We lost the lead.
Off the field. Fight back. UAV standing by.
1-1 requesting recon at
UAV is on station. Fire! Ours.
Down by 2. Still close. We're down by 10 at one point, but we didn't let the lead get too far away.
Enemy UAV overhead. Friendly VTOL on station.
One tip that I would pass on if you're playing this map, it hadn't been apparent to me early on, is that you can go under the house, through the basement,
Friendly care package in the AO.
the games room. Seems like an obvious thing to say, but it's really effective way to get into the house and to the other side of the map.
UAV online.
So we are well past the halfway mark. This map really reminds me of Metal Gear Solid 2. Just the fact that it takes place close to the coast. It's a dark and stormy night. And because of that thematic and visual similarity, I'm using
Friendly care
a
package
build of the M4 that's inspired by Metal Gear Solid 2. It's that old school 14-inch barrel carbine version that's prevalent in games and movies from the mid-90s to about the mid to late 2000s, including Metal Gear Solid 4. Nowadays you see the more contemporary M4, the Block 2 with the longer barrel, the one that's the default model
UAV on station.
in games like this one. My new tube doesn't get any kills there. So this build is just standard M4, iron sight, no optic. I don't even have a laser sight. I've chosen a stock that looks like your common stock for the M4. Now, Metal Gear Solid 2 and in Metal Gear Solid 4, actually no, excuse me. So in Metal Gear Solid 4, you can equip the underbarrel grenade launcher, but in Metal Gear Solid 2, it's only non-player characters who have it. And I bring up Metal Gear Solid 2 because it will be finally playable on the newer systems, because it will be part of the Master Collection Volume 1 that will be released later this year, along with Metal Gear Solid and Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater. I don't think it'll be available on the PlayStation 4, so there's incentive
Our UAV is
for me to finally get a PS5. And of course, the big announcement last week had been the non-gameplay teaser for Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater, which is going to be a remake of Metal Gear Solid 3. And they are almost certainly going to use the assets made using the in-house Fox engine for the pachinko machines. And I mean, it's easy to ride Konami for abandoning AAA game development in favor of pachinko machines and mobile games, but they're definitely taking a step in the right direction with Metal Gear Solid Delta. I'm assuming they're just going to use the original voice recording, but in terms of visuals, I don't think it'll be as dramatic a reimagining as the Resident Evil 4 remake, but I'm excited to play Metal Gear Solid 3 again, regardless.